Sarah's phone buzzed at 6:30 a.m., cutting through another restless night. 7 hours in bed, yet her body felt like it had been wrestling shadows. The bathroom mirror reflected the familiar stranger. Puffy eyes, tight jaw, a face that seemed older each morning, despite every cream and supplement promising otherwise. At 34, she'd tried everything. Keto, intermittent fasting, CrossFit at dawn, meditation apps that felt more like assignments than peace. Her kitchen cabinets held remnants of each failed attempt. Protein powders gathering dust, workout bands tangled in a drawer, a scale hidden behind the toilet that delivered daily verdicts of inadequacy. The commute to her downtown marketing firm offered no relief. Coffee in a disposable cup, breakfast bar unwrapped with one hand while checking emails with the other. Around her, Seattle's morning rush pulsed with the same frantic energy that lived in her chest. Hearts racing toward deadlines, minds already 3 meetings ahead. But today, something shifted her attention. Across the subway aisle sat Kenji, her quiet colleague from the Tokyo satellite office, visiting for a month-long project. While everyone else hunched over phones or clutched oversized coffee cups, he sat with an unusual stillness. His eyes were clear, his posture relaxed despite the early hour. In his hands, he held a small, simple object, a ceramic bowl containing what looked like rice and vegetables. "Breakfast?" she found herself asking. He looked up with a gentle smile. "In Japan we have a saying, the bowl teaches the stomach. This belonged to my grandmother. Same size, same ritual for 60 years. Sarah stared at the bowl, no bigger than her cupped palms with delicate blue patterns around the rim. Beside her massive coffee and pastry, it looked almost toy-like. Yet Kenji ate with deliberate slowness, each bite measured and mindful, as if the small portion contained exactly what his body needed. "Isn't that not enough food?" "Enough is different than full," he replied softly. "In Okinawa, my grandmother's village, people stop eating when they are 80% satisfied. Hara Hachibu. The last 20% is where problems begin." The train pulled into downtown. As they stood, Sarah noticed how Kenji moved. No hurried gathering of belongings, no caffeine jitters, no checking his phone. Just smooth, unhurried motion, as if he carried time differently than the rest of them. Walking toward their building, she found herself thinking about that small bowl. Her breakfast had been consumed mindlessly, a fuel-up between email responses. But Kenji's rice bowl seemed to serve a different function entirely, not just nutrition, but a moment of pause in a world that forgot to breathe. The morning meeting confirmed what Sarah already knew about her own state. While presenting quarterly metrics, her heart raced, her thoughts scattered. Beside her, Kenji delivered his portion with calm precision, never rushing, never stumbling. When someone challenged his timeline, he paused, actually paused, before responding. "In Tokyo, we learned that sustainable pace creates better results than sprint energy," he said. "The nervous system needs rhythm, not constant activation." After the meeting, Sarah lingered. "That bowl thing, is it really just about portion size?" Kenji considered this carefully. "The bowl is about creating boundary. In Japan, we design environment to make good choices easier. Small plates, specific meal times, cool sleeping rooms, walking instead of driving short distances. The discipline is not in the person, it is built into the day." That evening, Sarah stood in her kitchen, surrounded by mismatched plates and oversized bowls. Her dinner, Thai takeout from a container designed to feed 2, looked suddenly excessive. She thought about Kenji's grandmother, 60 years of the same small bowl, the same mindful portions. What would it feel like to eat until satisfied instead of stuffed? To have boundaries built into her environment instead of relying on willpower that evaporated by 3 p.m. For the first time in years, she left food on her plate. Not from restriction or shame, but from curiosity about what enough might actually feel like. If you've ever felt tired even after a full night of sleep or frustrated with diets that don't last, tell us in the comments which part of this story feels familiar, and stay with us for the next chapters. The next morning, Sarah found herself standing in the housewares section of a Japanese market in the International District, feeling slightly ridiculous. She'd never shopped for a rice bowl with intention before, but Kenji's grandmother's ritual had lodged itself in her mind like a persistent melody. The elderly shop owner, Mrs. Tanaka, watched her examine various bowls with patient amusement. "You are looking for portion control?" she asked in careful English. Something like that. A colleague mentioned his grandmother's bowl and... Ah, Mrs. Tanaka's eyes lit up. "You want chawan, rice bowl. Very important in Japanese home. Size matters, but also weight, feel in hands. Bowl teaches stomach, yes, but also teaches heart to slow down." Sarah selected a simple ceramic bowl, white with a thin blue rim that reminded her of Kenji's. In her hands, it felt substantial yet delicate, smaller than her usual dinner plates, but somehow more purposeful. "This size," Mrs. Tanaka said, "is for one person, one meal. Fill with rice, small portion protein, vegetables. Body learns satisfaction from completion, not from excess." That evening, Sarah used the new bowl for dinner. Portioning out rice, steamed vegetables, and a small piece of salmon, she was struck by how adequate it looked. Not abundant, not Instagram-worthy, but somehow complete. She ate slowly, paying attention to flavors and textures instead of scrolling her phone. Halfway through, something unexpected happened. Her stomach signaled satisfaction, a gentle fullness she usually ignored in favor of cleaning her plate. For the first time in years, she set down her chopsticks while food remained. "Hara hachibu," she whispered to the quiet kitchen. The following week brought small revelations. Using the bowl for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, Sarah discovered her appetite had its own wisdom when not overwhelmed by oversized portions. The constant bloating after meals began to fade. Her energy, instead of spiking and crashing, maintained a steadier rhythm. But the changes went beyond physical. The ritual of portioning food mindfully, eating without distraction, created pockets of calm in her chaotic schedule. The bowl became a pause button in a life that had forgotten how to stop. Kenji noticed during their morning commute. "You seem different, more present." Sarah smiled, touching the small bowl in her lunch bag. "I've been practicing Hara hachibu. Amazing how changing the size of my bowl changed everything else." "Portion control is just beginning," Kenji said gently. "In Japan, we have other ways to support metabolism without fighting body. Temperature therapy, walking rhythm, sleep timing, small changes that add up over years." "Temperature therapy?" "My grandmother slept in cool room year-round, 65 degrees. Body works harder to maintain warmth, burns more calories during rest. Also, we finish meals with warm tea, never cold drinks. Supports digestion, maintains internal fire." Sarah thought about her own habits, sleeping in a heated bedroom, drinking iced coffee with meals, spending evenings under thick blankets while binge-watching shows. Everything designed for immediate comfort, nothing challenging her metabolism in gentle, supportive ways. What about walking rhythm? In Tokyo, we walk everywhere with purpose, but not rush. Engages core muscles, stimulates circulation, but keeps nervous system calm. Different from gym workout that activates fight-or-flight response. That weekend, Sarah experimented. She lowered her bedroom temperature and was surprised by how deeply she slept under lighter covers. She replaced her usual iced afternoon drinks with warm tea, noticing how it settled her digestion. Instead of driving to nearby errands, she walked with deliberate attention to posture and breathing. Each change felt almost insignificant alone, but together they created something she hadn't experienced in years: ease. Her body felt less like a machine to be forced and more like a partner learning a new rhythm. The bowl sat on her kitchen counter between meals, a small blue reminder that transformation didn't require dramatic overhauls. Sometimes the most profound changes came from the simplest boundaries: a palm-sized portion of rice, a degree cooler room, a walk taken with presence instead of urgency. For the first time since college, Sarah felt like she was working with her body instead of against it. 3 weeks into her new rhythm, Sarah's friend Jessica arrived for their monthly dinner date, carrying takeout containers and skepticism. "You're being weird about food now," Jessica announced, watching Sarah portion the Thai curry into her small bowl. "Come on, live a little. We used to split 2 entrees and dessert." Sarah felt the familiar pull of social pressure. The bowl, which had become a source of calm, suddenly felt precious and slightly embarrassing under Jessica's scrutiny. "It's just portion control. Nothing dramatic." "It's obsessive. And what's with the hot tea? Since when do you not drink wine with Thai food?" The evening felt strained. Sarah found herself explaining each choice: the temperature of her drinks, her plan to walk Jessica to the train instead of calling an Uber, her bedtime routine that now started earlier. Under Jessica's skeptical gaze, these habits felt foreign even to herself. "You've gone full wellness influencer on me," Jessica said as they parted ways. "Next, you'll be telling me to buy some expensive meditation cushion." Alone that night, Sarah sat with her tea and questioned everything. Was she becoming obsessive? Had she traded one extreme for another? The bowl sat before her, no longer a symbol of balance, but a potential sign of rigidity. The next morning brought unexpected clarity. Dr. Chen, her physician, called with her annual blood work results. "Sarah, I have to say, I'm impressed. Your inflammatory markers are down significantly, your blood sugar is more stable, and you've lost 8 pounds without any dramatic measures. What have you been doing differently?" Sarah found herself describing the bowl, the walking, the temperature changes, habits that felt almost too simple to mention in a medical context. "These are exactly the kinds of sustainable changes I wish more patients would embrace," Dr. Chen said. "You're not forcing your body into submission. You're supporting its natural metabolism. Keep doing whatever you're doing." That afternoon, Kenji found her in the office break room, staring thoughtfully at her lunch bowl. "Your friend thinks you've become strange," he guessed. Sarah looked up, startled. "How did you know?" "In Japan, we call it nail. That stands up gets hammered down. When someone changes habits, others feel uncomfortable. Not because change is wrong, but because it highlights their own choices. So I'm supposed to just ignore their concerns. You listen to body, not opinions. Your energy, your sleep, your digestion. These tell truth. Other people's discomfort tells you about their relationship with change, not about your path." Kenji pulled out his own small bowl and began eating slowly, deliberately. "My wife in Tokyo worried when I started these habits. She said I was becoming too rigid. But after 1 year, she noticed I stopped getting sick every winter. After 2 years, she started using smaller plates too. Now our whole family eats this way." "How do you handle the social pressure?" "I bring my own rhythm to social situations. I eat slowly even when others rush. I order appropriately sized portions even when others overeat. I remain calm in their chaotic energy. Sometimes they start to mirror my pace instead of demanding I match theirs." That evening, Sarah experimented with Kenji's approach. At a work happy hour, she ordered warm tea while others drank cocktails. Instead of defending the choice, she simply smiled and participated in conversations. She noticed how the caffeine-free clarity felt different from alcohol-induced social ease, more present, less anxious. When a colleague commented on her weird health kick, she responded gently, "I'm just paying attention to what makes me feel better." By evening's end, 2 other people had switched from cocktails to tea, drawn by her calm energy rather than repelled by any perceived superiority. Walking home, Sarah reflected on the day's small victory. The bowl had taught her more than portion control. It had become practice in maintaining personal boundaries while remaining open to connection. She didn't need others to understand her choices, only to respect them. The habits were no longer foreign experiments, but part of her identity. She was becoming someone who ate until satisfied, slept in cool rooms, walked with purpose, and drank warming teas. Someone whose nervous system operated from ease rather than emergency. The bowl sat on her nightstand now, ready for morning rice. Not a symbol of restriction, but of self-respect, a daily choice to trust her body's wisdom over cultural pressures to excess. Would you rather force yourself with willpower or redesign your environment and habits like this character is learning to do? Comment which path makes more sense to you, and share this episode with someone who needs a gentler approach to change. 2 months in, Sarah's new rhythm faced its first major test. The company announced a 3-day conference in Las Vegas, the antithesis of everything she'd been cultivating. Late nights, buffet meals, networking drinks, and a schedule that would shatter every carefully built habit. Just pack some protein bars and suffer through it, Jessica advised. It's only 3 days. But Sarah had learned enough to know that suffering through was the old way, the willpower approach that always led to post-trip binges and abandoned routines. Standing in her kitchen the morning before departure, she looked at her grandmother's bowl. She'd started thinking of it that way, and made a different choice. The bowl went into her carry-on. Vegas assaulted her senses immediately. The airport buzzed with slot machines and oversized food courts. Her hotel room was stuffy and overheated. The conference center served breakfast pastries the size of dinner plates, alongside coffee strong enough to power the city's neon signs. But Sarah had brought her environment with her. She adjusted the room temperature to 65 degrees, unpacked her electric kettle for evening tea, and yes, she used her small bowl at the intimidating breakfast buffet. "That's a tiny portion," her colleague Mark observed, loading his plate with enough food for 3 people. "It's a free buffet, you know." "I know. This is just what I eat now." The first day was exhausting but manageable. While others crashed from sugar and caffeine spikes, Sarah maintained steady energy by eating appropriate portions every few hours. When the group went to a steakhouse known for massive servings, she asked for a to-go container immediately and boxed up 3/4 of her meal before taking a bite. "You're really not going to eat that whole steak?" Mark asked, slightly horrified. "I'm savoring what I am eating instead of suffering through too much." Day 2 brought the real challenge. A networking event at a rooftop bar, pressure to drink and stay out late, colleagues already making jokes about her weird, healthy thing. Sarah felt the old pull to abandon her boundaries, to prove she could still be fun, still be one of the team. At 9 p.m., while others were on their 3rd round of cocktails and fried appetizers, Sarah quietly ordered hot tea and a small salad. The server looked confused, but brought what she asked for. "Come on, Sarah," Mark said, clearly drunk. "Live a little. You're in Vegas. I am living, just differently than I used to." She stayed for another hour, participating in conversations with clear energy while others grew increasingly sloppy. When she announced her intention to return to the hotel by 10 p.m., the groans of disapproval felt like old, familiar pressure. But walking back through the neon chaos to her cool, quiet room, Sarah felt something new. Pride. Not the brittle pride of restriction, but the deep satisfaction of self-respect. She'd maintained her rhythm in an environment designed to destroy it. The final morning brought validation. While her colleagues stumbled through presentations with hangovers and digestive distress, Sarah felt energetic and clear. Her skin looked better than theirs, despite the dry desert air. Her clothes fit the same as when she'd arrived. "How are you not dying right now?" Mark asked, cradling his 3rd cup of coffee. "I feel like I got hit by a truck. I went to bed at 10 p.m. and ate appropriately sized meals, same as always. In Vegas, that's actually kind of impressive." On the plane home, Sarah reflected on the weekend's lessons. The bowl hadn't just taught her about portion sizes. It had become a symbol of maintaining her authentic self, regardless of external pressure. She could be social without abandoning her boundaries, professional without sacrificing her health, flexible without being chaotic. More importantly, she'd proven to herself that her new habits weren't fragile house of cards that collapsed at the first challenge. They were sturdy practices that traveled well, adapted gracefully, and actually made difficult situations more manageable. The flight attendant offered mixed nuts or cookies. Sarah chose nuts, ate them slowly, and felt genuinely satisfied with the small portion. Around her, passengers snacked mindlessly on oversized portions while watching screens. She closed her eyes and felt grateful, not for restriction or superiority, but for the deep contentment that came from living in harmony with her body's actual needs. The bowl had taught her that enough was not a limitation, but a form of freedom. 6 months after that first subway encounter, Sarah sat across from Dr. Chen, reviewing blood work that told a story of profound change. Not just numbers, but a complete metabolic transformation. "Your inflammatory markers are now in the optimal range," Dr. Chen said, genuine amazement in her voice. "Your insulin sensitivity has improved dramatically. You've lost 23 pounds. But more importantly, you've gained metabolic flexibility. What you've done here isn't just weight loss, it's systemic healing." Sarah touched the small bowl in her lunch bag, remembering the skeptical woman who'd first questioned Kenji about not enough food. Now she understood the deeper truth. She hadn't been changing her diet. She'd been changing her relationship with her own body. "The interesting thing," Dr. Chen continued, "is that according to your food diary, you're not eating significantly fewer calories than before. You're eating them in a completely different rhythm and structure." This was the revelation that had been building for months. The bowl hadn't taught her restriction, it had taught her response. The small portions created space to actually feel satiation signals her body had been sending for years. The warm teas supported digestion instead of shocking her system with ice. The cool, sleeping environment had activated brown fat stores she never knew existed. But the deepest change was neurological. The nervous system that had operated in constant emergency mode for over a decade had finally shifted into parasympathetic ease. Her heart rate variability had improved. Her sleep cycles had synchronized with natural circadian rhythms. Her stress response had become proportional to actual threats instead of chronically activated by email notifications. "I think I understand now," Sarah told Dr. Chen. "I spent years trying to force my body into submission with willpower and extreme measures. But Japanese longevity habits work because they support biology instead of fighting it. The environment does the work, not the person." That evening, Sarah met Kenji for tea before his return to Tokyo. The conversation had come full circle. Instead of her questioning his habits, he was curious about her transformation. "You look different, not just weight, but presence, more grounded. The bowl taught me that discipline isn't about suffering. It's about designing a life where healthy choices become effortless because they're built into daily structure." Kenji smiled. "My grandmother would be proud. She used to say the bowl teaches patience to modern world that forgot how to wait for satisfaction." What's funny is how much resistance I got from other people. Friends, family, colleagues, everyone had opinions about my radical changes, but eating appropriately sized portions and sleeping in cool rooms hardly seems extreme. In Japan, we have a concept called wei, harmony. When someone lives in harmony with natural rhythms, others who are fighting their biology feel uncomfortable. Your ease highlights their struggle. Sarah thought about Jessica, who still made comments about her obsessive habits, and Mark, who seemed both impressed and threatened by her consistency. The changes that felt nurturing to her appeared restrictive to people still trapped in all-or-nothing thinking. The strangest part is realizing I was addicted to feeling terrible. Overfull after meals, exhausted despite long sleep, anxious without constant stimulation. I thought that was normal adult life. In Okinawa, my grandmother's friends are in their 90s and still tend gardens, cook for family, walk several miles daily. They never accepted feeling terrible as normal aging. They maintained rhythm that supports vitality. As they parted ways, Kenji left Sarah with a final gift, a package wrapped in traditional paper. "For your kitchen, from my grandmother's collection." Inside was a matching teacup, the same blue pattern as her rice bowl, accompanied by a note written in careful English, "For the granddaughter I never met, who honors the wisdom of small portions and patient eating. May you find satisfaction in enough." Walking home through Seattle's evening bustle, Sarah felt the profound shift that had occurred. The woman who'd started this journey was someone who ate, standing over the sink, checking emails while consuming oversized portions, fighting her body with willpower and shame. The woman she'd become, seated quietly, from beautiful dishes that honored both the food and the ritual of nourishment. She'd learned to trust her body's signals instead of overriding them. She'd discovered that satisfaction came not from more, but from attention. The bowl hadn't just changed her portions, it had changed her entire relationship with time, presence, and self-care. Small, daily rituals had rewired decades of chaos into sustainable peace. 2 years later, Sarah stood in her kitchen preparing dinner for her visiting parents, the blue-rimmed bowl, now accompanied by a full set of matching dishes. Her mother watched with fascination as Sarah portioned meals with deliberate care. "I still can't believe how different you look," her mother said. "Not just thinner, but calmer, like you're not fighting something anymore." Sarah smiled, thinking of the woman who'd first questioned whether Kenji's small bowl contained enough food. That anxiety about scarcity had been replaced by trust in abundance, not of quantity, but of quality and attention. "I stopped seeing my body as an enemy that needed to be controlled," Sarah explained, serving rice into the small bowls. "These habits taught me that cooperation works better than force." Her father, skeptical by nature, had been tracking her changes with scientific curiosity. "Your mother showed me your blood work, those inflammatory markers. It's like you've reversed a decade of aging. Dr. Chen says my biological age has actually decreased by 8 years since I started these practices. Not through expensive interventions or extreme measures, just environmental design and daily rhythm." The dinner itself demonstrated the transformation. Her parents, initially concerned about the tiny portions, found themselves satisfied and energized rather than stuffed and sleepy. The warm tea Sarah served afterward supported their digestion instead of the usual post-meal sluggishness. "This feels more civilized somehow," her mother admitted, "taking time with the meal instead of rushing through it." After her parents left, Sarah sat in her cool bedroom, preparing for sleep with the ritual that had become second nature. Room temperature at 65 degrees, devices charging in another room, herbal tea in the small ceramic cup Kenji's grandmother had gifted her. The changes had rippled through every aspect of her life. Colleagues now came to her for advice about sustainable wellness practices. Jessica, initially resistant, had quietly started using smaller plates and walking to work instead of driving. Even Mark had asked about her sleep routine after noticing her consistent energy levels. But the most profound shift was internal. The woman who'd once relied on willpower for every healthy choice now lived in a rhythm that made wellness feel effortless. Her environment supported her biology, her habits honored her nervous system, and her daily practices created space for presence instead of chaos. The bowl sat on her nightstand, ready for tomorrow morning's breakfast. A simple ritual that had taught her the difference between restriction and boundaries, between deprivation and satisfaction, between forcing change and allowing transformation. In the quiet darkness, Sarah reflected on the unexpected path that had led here. She'd thought she was just learning portion control, but the bowl had revealed something much deeper. That ancient wisdom about living in harmony with natural rhythms held answers that modern life's complexity had obscured. Her phone buzzed with a message from Kenji in Tokyo, now a cherished friend. "How are the habits serving you?" Sarah typed back. "They're not habits anymore, they're just how I live." Outside her window, Seattle hummed with its familiar energy. People rushing toward deadlines, eating oversized portions, fighting their bodies with willpower and shame. The same struggles she'd carried for over a decade. But inside her cool, quiet room, holding a cup of warm tea in hands that no longer shook with caffeine jitters, Sarah embodied a different possibility. Small, consistent practices had rewired her relationship with time, food, rest, and attention. The bowl had taught her that transformation didn't require dramatic intervention, just daily choices that honored her body's deepest intelligence. Years later, when people asked about her secret, Sarah would offer the same gentle wisdom Kenji had shared. The discipline isn't in the person fighting their biology, but in designing a life where healthy choices become as natural as breathing. The bowl would continue to teach, one meal at a time, one boundary at a time, one moment of presence at a time, not as restriction, but as a pathway back to the body's own wisdom about what enough really means. If this story reminded you that real transformation comes from small habits repeated over time, not from overnight fixes, subscribe to the channel, tell us which country you watch from, and invite someone to start this journey with you in the next story.